From Wada Brands, welcome to Enhance Your Life. I'm your host, Jonathan Small, and each week I talk to people from all sorts of professions and backgrounds about how cannabis has enhanced their lives and how this healing plant can enrich your life too. Hey everybody, welcome to the Enhance Your Life podcast. My name is Jonathan Small and I am your host, and I'm so excited about my guest today. We have April Pride and Ellen Scanlon with us, and they are the hosts of the How to Do the Pot podcast.
How to Do the Pot. Our mission is simple. Make sure women understand how to use cannabis or why others may choose to consume.
Can't wait to talk about that. They both have really interesting backgrounds. April comes from the fashion world. She launched Vanderpop, one of the first luxury lifestyle brands in the business to offer high-style smoking accoutrement. And that company was acquired in 2018 by Canopy Growth. And Ellen, who is the co-creator of the podcast, comes to cannabis with a wealth of experience in finance, as well as healthcare and startups focused on women's health. And they both have started the company called Of Like Minds, which is a media platform aimed at demystifying cannabis for women. And their mission is to give women information they need to understand the legal cannabis market and all the plant's potential. So welcome to you both. Thrilled to have you on the show.
Thanks for having us.
First things first, tell me how you guys met and how you decided to kind of jump into this world of demystifying cannabis for women.
I was working in cannabis before Ellen and I started working in cannabis. As you mentioned, I had started a company called Vanderpop, which we created. I'm a creative entrepreneur, so I have worked in fashion, although it was limited. I really hold a degree in architecture and have a master's in a related field. So I would say that the best description of me has been as a creative entrepreneur, because I've been in a lot of different industries, but cannabis was the first one that actually really connected with me. And Ellen and I will speak more to that because we have this is something that we both share. But I was designing products to store, smoke, and share cannabis, right, with a design background, and very quickly realized that women in particular didn't know about the ways in which the plant worked with their bodies. And so I was asking them to buy jars and bags, but they didn't really understand what to do with the weed they were putting inside of, their stash, what was in their stash, really. And so we quickly turned into a platform, an education platform. So women understood how to use cannabis in a way that would give them their best outcome, really, because everyone's got a bad edible story and the market's flooded with edibles and no one knew what to really do to make sure that they didn't repeat a bad experience. So Alan Gertner, who is the CEO of Tokyo Smoke, and I met, and an investor in Tokyo Smoke introduced us again, and we came together and formed Haiku, which then had a lot of portfolio brands, and as you mentioned, was acquired in 2018 by Canopy. So I stayed on through legalization in Canada, hosting women in weed events across the country, and met, literally thousands of women, and stayed on through legalization, which was October 17th, 2018. I left in February 2019 and wanted to stay in the game, really loved being in the space. I wanted to keep talking to women, definitely felt like there were more out there and there still weren't a lot of answers. I had never worked in a large corporation. Ellen and I went to the University of Virginia together, and she was doing some research on cannabis, came across my name. I'll let her tell that story.
And you guys were friendly in college, or?
Yes, we were actually in the same sorority.
Oh, how cool. Okay, perfect.
And then, I deactivated. I feel like I should say that. I think she did too, maybe. I don't remember. But she was a couple years younger than me.
Sorority dropouts, but
yes,
entrepreneurs.
I guess maybe that's what we have in common. So she was coaching me through this new reality where I had to operate within a large corporate structure with people that had worked at Google and consulting firms, et cetera. And I'm a creative, right? So there was a learning curve there. And I felt like she really talked me through it. And she was already advising entrepreneurs. And so this was advice I was getting for free, which I appreciated. And when I wanted to continue in the space, it was pretty clear with my experience in Canada that having someone that understood financial markets and how to speak to Wall Street people also was looking to be in an industry where they could make a difference was, Ellen checked a lot of boxes. And so I'll let her talk more about her startup experience in women's health.
Ellen, you take it from there.
Well, April and I definitely shared a passion for finding something that we love that also could make a big impact and also where we could be financially successful. I think we both are really big believers that it's important and empowering for women to be in positions in business where they can play a strong and big role. And it helps the women consumers. It helps all of us. And so that is a passion just at its root that we really share. And having worked in mostly male-dominated industries, and cannabis, I would say, is one also, I've also seen the benefits that having women in positions of power can have on everything. And especially with cannabis being such a new industry, it just really feels like it should be 50-50. That just seems pretty clear to me that it's going to create a better industry. So yeah, I got out of Virginia. I actually have an English degree, but I went to work for an investment bank and I worked on a trading floor. I have worked as an investment banker, as a trader on the proprietary desk, investing money for the bank's own accounts. I then worked in the investment industry, managing money for endowments and foundations, and moved to California and was working for a private equity firm and started meeting some people who were really having some interesting careers in startups and in startup industries, and just always paying attention to what my friends were doing. And I got to a point where, another investment firm where I worked was bought by another company, and it was just sort of more chaos and transitions. And I decided I was going to go out on my own. And so that's when I started advising entrepreneurs, and the thread between my clients were that they were in fast-growing, fast-changing industries. And I ended up working for a women's healthcare startup as a consultant, and then was brought on full-time and really, really got an education in women's healthcare and the holes that exist, the opportunities that exist to improve. And that was right about the time that April and I reconnected. I actually saw her. She was in a Vice video having a session in LA, and it looked really fun. And it looked—
What kind of session?
Like she was with Vanderpop. And April, you can probably explain more. It was kind of the first of its kind.
Yeah, we really felt that women had questions about the products that we were trying to sell. And as I mentioned, they also had questions about weed. And we just wanted to give them an opportunity to touch and feel the products. But what we found was that women just wanted an excuse to smoke weed with other women. So we hosted these events called Session under the guise that it was like a Tupperware party where you could see Vanderpop's products. But it became a way for like-minded women to really connect over this one shared interest. And I was lucky enough to be connected with Vice before we went and hosted our first one in LA. It was a couple days after the 2016 presidential election. So there was some interesting energy behind it.
Yeah.
And the video made it all the way to Ellen. So that's how we connected.
Oh, that's awesome. So Ellen, you decided that you wanted to get involved in that business, go from kind of more traditional wealth management, healthcare, and start, in something you felt more passionate about, right? Just on a personal level.
Definitely. And I have always been a fan of the plant, and I live in San Francisco. So I had a medical card, and then it became legal for adult use, which was a real opening point for me. We talk about how you don't need to buy weed from a guy anymore. And I think that's really what adult use changes for a lot of women, because my husband it was always, I and most of the women I talked to got weed through a guy. And so it's a giant, giant change when you're opened up and you can buy it from a store, I can get it from a delivery service. And I think that once you kind of get past all of those hurdles, there's still the big question of what works for me? What do I like? How do I want to feel? And as a curious person, I've never learned more than I have in my past few years in the cannabis industry. It touches every single part of our economy. One of the things that I learned working on Wall Street and what I think I really enjoyed about it was that I always felt like I was right in the middle of things. The news mattered. Feeling like I was a part of it is something that I really like. And cannabis for me definitely checks that box, where there's not a day that goes by that there isn't a news story. And with the election results just a few weeks ago, every state that cannabis was on the ballot having that come through and move towards legalization. It's incredibly exciting to be part of something that's growing so quickly, and that we also really believe can support and help the core demographic that we've chosen to serve, which is women.
Your podcast answers this question, the most Googled questions about cannabis from women. And I'm curious what some of those are. What have you found in your research? What are women asking? What do women want to know that might be different than questions that men are asking?
This is April. I don't feel like it's a surprise when we share that the topics that women are most interested in hearing more about are related to sleep, stress, and alternative ways to treat pain, a variety of pain. So that's really what we touch on. And you'd be surprised the different angles, I guess, you can come at from with those topics. And then we launched a year ago, November, so basically a year ago, and COVID hit. So sleep and stress became something that almost everybody was really struggling with. And so we were already having these conversations, but really this became, over the course of the last year, a way for us to talk to people that would normally not have found cannabis, right? They were probably managing those conditions in ways that were fine for short term, right? And so they just did what they needed to do. But then a lot of what we're hearing is there's more of a need for help with sleep on a more consistent, regular basis, and popping pills was just not feeling quite right. Or, what was one glass of wine became a bottle of wine pretty quickly. And so they're open to weed because they wanted to change what they were currently doing to address those common problems that we're all seeing, but they just didn't want to get it wrong, right? It was really confusing.
So is that the biggest thing that women struggle with, is that they might have had bad experiences, or they're kind of curious, as they say, but haven't really dabbled that much since like their days in college or whatever, in high school, and they just don't want to screw it up and feel weird? And do you think, the biggest concern that women have about their experience with cannabis?
Well, I don't think that the conversations that Ellen and I have are far off from like really what we're trying to do with our listeners, right? I had been working in cannabis. She was already consuming cannabis, but wanted to do it in a different way for, whether it's dental surgery, or she really wanted to try edibles, but the 10 milligram minimum doses that she would find in dispensaries was like a lot, way too much. So what am I doing wrong here, I think, is the question. And it's just not enough information. So I think we're really answering the questions that Ellen had in a lot of ways on the show.
Let's talk about sleep, because that is there's nobody listening to this that probably doesn't have an issue with sleep, right? It's just universal, no matter what gender you are. But what have you learned? You say you've learned a lot in the last 2 years, Ellen. What have you learned specifically about sleep and cannabis that has surprised you?
Well, I take CBD. I take a gel cap every night before bed, and I have never had as good of sleep as I have now. I have a 2.5-year-old, so when I started taking it, he would wake up in the middle of the night, and then I am also running a startup, and so my brain would start going, and then I couldn't get back to sleep. And so I have always, really since, for the past few years, I don't have any trouble falling asleep, but getting back to sleep was my issue. So I learned that CBD could help that, and I started trying it, and it really, really does help that. So I think that the first thing that I found was that it took a little experimentation, and I think that is really, really something important to emphasize, because there is just not a ton of research about sleep. And much the same way that people right now take a pill, or they take a melatonin, or they drink a little alcohol. What gets you to sleep really is different for every person. And I think that is definitely the case for cannabis. What we know from the research, mostly on veterans around PTSD, is that THC can support their sleep by minimizing nightmares. And in doing that, that means that your REM sleep is diminished. REM sleep is part of the quality of sleep. So if you are suffering already because you have nightmares, then losing a little bit of your quality of sleep but not having nightmares is great, and you'll take that. If you are not suffering from nightmares, then having a lower quality of REM sleep might not be that great for you. But if you wake up, it's like this cost benefit analysis that you're constantly doing. And I just know from my personal experience and from sharing my experience with other people that it works for me. It's anecdotal. What's been fun is that April and I have had really different sleep experiences. So she'll share hers, but we love to share that it is so worth trying, because waking up, even if you've had less sleep than you want, but feeling good. And I think the major thing with cannabis is that it's far less likely that you'll have any morning after effects. So the grogginess, the just not feeling like yourself in the morning that's not one of the side effects of taking cannabis. But April had a really different experience using the exact same product that I get a lot of relief from.
What was that experience, April?
Well, Ellen's a big fan of tinctures. She takes CBD tincture on a daily basis to just regulate her sleep cycles. And part of that is taking it before bed. And of course, I knew a lot of women that were taking tinctures before bed, CBD with no THC in it, and having great results. That wasn't my experience. I was taking it about 9 o'clock. And we are lucky we get products from a lot of different brands. And so I had tried about 4 different tinctures, all hemp-derived CBD, and was waking up at 1 a.m., all of them, multiple times. Like that was the time. So there was something about the cycle ended, and it just, so I finally we had a brand partner that we worked with, Equilibria, out of Chicago, and they have CBD specialists who you can call. Uh-huh. And I told them, this is my challenge. What's going on? And they said that 30% of the women that they speak to can find CBD alerting, and that they can't take it right before bed. And you should really be taking it 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. again to regulate your sleep cycle, not to get you to sleep.
Interesting. Sometimes I find that it's different, the experience, whether you take a tincture or an edible to go to sleep. Well, it really depends. Like Wana has a sort of fast-acting tincture, and some of these other companies have fast-acting tinctures. Has your experience been that it's different? You mentioned about the tinctures being that you couldn't take it right before you go to bed, but do you find the effects of the different form factors that you can take CBD in affects your sleep in different ways? And do you try different methods?
I probably could speak to that because I feel like I tried a lot of different things, and I have to confess, I think it's come down to ease of use. And I continue to take the Equilibria product, which is a gel cap now. And so I take all my vitamins before I go to bed, and I throw it in my little, plastic container with the days on it, which is one of the only ways I remember the days these days.
You have a 2.5-year-old.
I take it for bed.
Right. And it's COVID. Right. Now, okay. So you take a gel cap, and I noticed a lot of companies now will mix, especially they'll make sleep products where they'll mix like melatonin with the CBD or with the THC. Do you think that's necessary, or does CBD in your case, is that enough?
In my case, it's enough. I've always been sensitive to things like melatonin, and they definitely put me to sleep, but I do really feel groggy from them. So I think in general with sleep, because it's so precious and I don't want to feel like I'm dependent on anything, the more pure whatever it is that I'm putting into my body, the more comfortable I feel with it. We know the women who run Equilibria. We know that they own their farm. We know their farming practices. And so that is definitely one of the benefits that I have found working in the industry, and something that we really want to share with people, that finding the best quality products that you can really does make a difference in your experience. And I think in your peace of mind, which is really important in a nascent industry with products that, while the form factor may feel the same, it's different. And so whatever you can do to make yourself feel more confident in what you're putting in your body, I think that goes a long way as well.
Yeah. What are some other questions that you commonly get from women? We talked about sleep here, obviously stress, pain. Is it frequently about dosage? Is that sort of the main issue that you hear a lot, or are there other sort of concerns or questions that come up a bit?
Ellen and I joke that the question that we get is it's not really a question. Just tell me what to buy.
Right. Tell me what to do,
Just
please.
Yeah. Just tell me what to buy. Give me a product. I'll go buy it. Stat.
Yeah.
And so to your point, these quick onset products help women have a better outcome because it's predictable, right? And so their experience is one that, can change their mind. Oh, maybe there is something to cannabis. And they'll have more compassion to other women who choose cannabis to, as a way to improve their health and well-being. So the products are having a big effect on women's positive outcomes. New form factors, to what Ellen said about, really comes down to ease of use, and I think that's because, it's no surprise that a woman is the CEO and founder of Wana, right? And they've put out a product like that.
That is very true. What do you kind of hope happens in the next 3 years with the industry? You're very much about educating women, and what are some of the obstacles you think that women face in this industry? I'm thinking more about consumers here than about entrepreneurs getting into the business. What are some of the obstacles that you hope to overcome with your business and just in general in the industry?
Well, we talk a lot about how April and I are sort of the one in our friend group who knows the most about cannabis. And we can't, not that we go to parties anymore, but when we used to, you can't escape a party without people wanting to ask questions. So I think the curiosity is really there, and a combination of more legal access and easier access is just going to really, I think, be important. I believe that COVID has fast forwarded so much of the acceptance around cannabis, as the conversation around mental health and well-being has just gotten a lot more serious for a lot of people. And so I'm very hopeful that the feeling of empathy that seems to just exist for all of us is one that will spread, and that will also be empathetic towards people who consume cannabis. I think it already looks like it's happening, and the numbers, the sales will tell you that more and more people are buying cannabis, and it can't just be for all the people who, just want to kind of have a Saturday night getting high experience. And this is our parents' friends, everyone we know is trying to find ways to feel better. And I believe that cannabis is helping a lot of people. And as more stories are told, we have a podcast that tells stories. We really think that telling stories and sharing these stories, I know it works individually in my life. And so we've been trying to amplify that through the podcast to give people permission to look and try and be willing to experiment a little bit.
Well, it's a fabulous podcast, How to Do the Pot. I highly recommend it. And thank you so much, both of you, for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us. I'm excited to track your success in your career next year as well.
Thank you. Appreciate your time,
Thank you so
Jonathan.
much for having us. And we love your podcast too.
Well, thanks. It's a love fest. Enhance Your Life is brought to you by Wana, the #1 infused product in the U.S. Wana's entire process is designed to deliver the same great experience time after time. They have spent years fine-tuning their recipes so that their products are delicious, consistent, and potent. For more information, check out wanawellness.com. That's Wana, W-A-N-A, wellness.com.